So welcome to the DBMS class. So we are talking about the DBMS platform towards relational data, towards the cardinality, the various vendors of relational databases. So we talked about it. So now we are at this word called as cardinality. So cardinality, it is going to point out the number of rows, whereas the degree, it is going to point out the number of columns here. So that is the first distinction you must understand. So cardinality, it takes up the number of rows, that is 3. Degree, it is going to take up the number of columns, that is 5. So, and everything is going to be distinct, and there is no overlapping of rows, there is no overlapping of columns, tuples, etc. So another most important thing was every column is going to have a name and it is going to have a range. So range, it is going to be defined by some constraints, and we do have this uniqueness, which it is going to be represented as a atomicity, and every attribute is not going to be null. Some value is going to be given into it. So we say we should specify it as not null. But if we want to limit its scope to say that it is a null value, then we can mention it as a null. So relations are going to be unordered. It means that it need not be in an ascending order. It need not be in a descending order. It can be of any order. So, but still, it is going to fit up the arity. It is going to fit up the rows. It is going to fit up the number of columns like that. So a database, as far as the definition is going to be concerned, it is going to have some multiple relations, and it is going to break up into different parts. So different parts, and each is going to have some relation in it. So that is the thing what we should interpret. So it can be a banking database, or it can be any industrial application, whatever it is. Okay, fine. Now we do have the database schema. Now we do have the database architectures, etc. Now it is up to us what language should be used. Yeah, we prefer up with the proprietary software which was invented around the 90s, 70s by IBM, which is R, and thereby it is then lended towards SQL, that is structured query language, which is having 96, 96, 90. So as far as SQL is going to be concerned, the most of the thing was the database is there, and the data is going to be dumped, and now the data has to be retrieved. So to retrieve a data, we need a more powerful language. That is, it is going to be done up with some structured queries. So for that, SQL was invented. So we call it as a structured query language, and it is fabricated with data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, and data transaction language, etc. So why now we look up a quick recap of the commands which are going to be part of a data definition language. So here a database has to be created, that is, a relation has to be established. For that, we are going to take up the creation of a relation, that is, we do make a table here. So in this table, we are going to define SID, name and login and age and GPA. These elements, we are going to call it as variables, and character, number, numeric and real, they are going to be the data types here. So they do have some domain which is having a minimum value, and they do have a maximum value. So in order to create a database, the first step was creating of a table. Second thing, yeah, due to some error, you want to eliminate the table, you don't want to use the table. So what we are going to do is we make a delete operation. So how we are going to make a delete operation? That means we are going to use a destroy function. So that is with a drop command. That is with a drop command. After that, we do have one more primitive here. That is, we need to append a table column, nor we need to add some table column, etc. So for that case, how we are going to do those such transactions was we are going to use this altering of a table. We are going to use a command called as an altering of a table. That is, we modify a table's a structure. That is, we are going to add up one more column to the table. So that is how we use called as a alter table here. So alter table, the table name was student, and then we are going to add one more column. So we make this. And so now here, after the data definition language is concerned, so when we are going to call about the data definition language, we mentioned that data definition language is going to have a creating of a table, a dropping of a table, the modifying of a table is going to be done via this alter command. After that, we are going to use a retrieval of a stored in a database. To make such a retrieval, we are going to use this select command. We are going to use the select command, and select command is going to have a lot of clauses in it. One type of clause we are going to call it as from clause. Another we are going to have it as where clause. Next we have some having clause. Then we have order by clause. Later we are going to have group by clause. So these are the different clauses which are going to be mentioned out towards the retrieval of a data in a very systematic approach from a database. So structured query language is going to have much of the things in form of a select command, and that select command it is going to take up from clause, where clause, group by clause, order by clause, etc. So the most important thing was it need not be done with a single set of a query. It can be passed with multiple set of queries. So how is this multiple set of queries is going to take place? Here in the previous example, you can see that there is only a table called as a student, and an instance or an aliases of a student S is created, and thereby its attribute is retrieved. But now in this example, you can look into it. There are two tables. One table we are going to call it as student. Another table we are going to call it as enrolled. Student is represented by S. Enrollment is represented by E. And this data type, we to pick up these two elements, one S dot name and E dot CID, and we are going to perform an AND operation, a relational operation. As SQL, it is going to support relational algebra and tuple calculus. So we are going to use an AND function. We are going to use an AND function towards it, and we are mimicking the first table student with the second table called as enrolled, and thereby we are going to retrieve the data. So when we do such CID, and we do have the relevant tuples which are going to be organized in it. Yeah. So the first and foremost command, we talked about the select command. And now when we are going to talk about the data manipulation language, when we are talking about the data manipulation language, the first thing was how to include a data into a database. That is the first element here. So when there is a first element here, now we need to make some insert operation. So insert is a command where we are going to do this data manipulation language. That too, we want to add something into a table. So insert into the table name followed by the fields, that is SID, name, login, age, and GPA, and whatever values we want to use, whatever values we want to give up. So those values we are going to add up into the insert operation. Then the another foremost thing will be the data manipulation language will be the delete command. So as we insert data into database, then again it is up to us to remove the data from a database. How we are going to do it means we are going to use a delete SQL command, and thereby we are going to do it in a structured way. Yeah, fine. So now we talked about a data definition language. Then we talked about data manipulation language. Now, when we are building up a relational schema, the first thing we should take care will be the integrated conditions. So whatever conditions we are going to impose on a database, that should be affected over the data. For that, we need to specify it, and thereby we need to verify and validate whether the condition is going to be provoked or not. We need to verify it. So there are some instances which we created student.yes as an aliases. Via that instances, we can use these integrity constraints. Yeah. Where are these integrity constraints applied? The next question was, where are these integrity constraints applied? Yeah, integrity constraints, they are going to be applied towards a key. They are going to be applied with a foreign key. Going to have a domain constraint. So if I call it as a domain constraint, I can say gender. So when I'm going to call it as a gender, yeah, it can be either male or female. Now the domain constraint is going to have yes or no, male or female value. Next, when I am going to take up your pass or fail, I need to have only two elements in that. Then I'm going to say domain constraint. I include either you have an option to give yes, nor you have an option to give no. You don't have any other option to give in such a way where we are going to call that one as some domain constraints. Next one, when we talk about a key, so key, it is going to include first a value called as null. So when we are going to call it as a null operation, that means it, when we are going to give up, that field should not be empty. So so that only once an empty value will be take up, but rest of the time it will not take up the empty value. So only one empty value is still there, but that is also not relevant as far as the database is concerned. Some data should be there. So if not, some ambiguity is going to rise when we are going to do foreign key or key constraints. So they went for a next option called as a unique. They went for a next option called as a unique. So when we are going to see it as unique, the first thing was it doesn't even make it doesn't not null, it doesn't make that empty space is also going to be there. So now when we are going to call the first type of key, we are going to call it as primary key. So primary key, it is going to take up unique and it is going to take up not null. So at this case, you can understand that when we are going to say it is a primary key, there is no empty space. There is no empty space. If I am going to take up your register number will be unique across your college. Similarly, if I am going to take your mobile number will be unique across the world. So that type of uniqueness is going to be proposed with the primary key. After primary key, we are going to have another word called as a composite key. So composite key, what I can create is, I'm going to have a word called as first name, that is your given name by your parents, and the last name. So last name is your family, which is going to come across with your ancestry. When I want to get your name, then I will take up both your first name and last name. That means to get a name, I need both first name and last name. Then I am going to call that one as a composite name. So, okay, next one I am going to call it as candidate key. Next one I am going to call it as candidate key. So when we have unique items, when we have more number of unique items, for example, email is unique across the world, mobile number is unique across the world. So if I am going to bring it to our college, then I can say your register number is unique across the JNTU or your academic. Now I'm having three unique items here. For these three unique items, what all I can look to fit my relation. So those we are going to call it as candidate keys. So register number is one candidate key. Then I have your mobile number as one key, and another email I'm going to have another three unique keys. From that three set of unique keys, I'm going to pick up one, which is I'm going to choose it as a primary key. So after integrity constraints has been made, so we should see that these unique keys are going to be very legal as far they are going to be concerned, and there is no subset of any fields which it is going to be taken up. So there are some minimal subset of columns of a relation that are going to be uniquely identified with a tuple. So that is all we are going to consider. So here you can see one more item called as a super key here. So whatever keys which are available in a data set, in a database, those we are going to represent as a super keys, and the best option which it is going to fit it for a relation we are going to choose, and that one we are going to call it as a key, and which it is going to be minimal key here. So here you can look into candidate and keys and primary key here. So possible candidate keys, I am going to have student identifier, candidate identifier. So these two are going to be unique. So CID and SID, they are going to be two elements which can be proposed as a primary key, so that it is going to specify as a candidate key. From that I am going to choose only one. From that I am going to choose only one, so that is SID. So now SID is going to be primary key. And what are the unique items? I can say CID and grade. Those they are going to become as a candidate keys here. So that is what we talked about a relation here. So after that, now we need to refer a key which is going to be a primary key in one database to and we need to mimic with the another item in a database. For that we are going to use the foreign keys. So foreign keys, we are going to call them as referential items here. So foreign keys, you can see they are going to be a set of fields in one relation, and they are going to represent an entire tuple towards another relation here. So foreign key, they are going to be part of a referential key items here. So you can assume here the student is going to have SID, name, login, age, and GPA, and his ID is going to be mapped towards an enrollment, and enrollment do have SID, CID, and grade. So now you can see that SID is going to be common. SID is going to be common either in this enrollment, nor it is going to be common in the student, and thereby we are going to build up a relation, and that relation, it is going to be referential between multiple tables. Then we are going to call that one as a foreign key. So one of the most important constraint towards the foreign key was foreign key should be a primary key in a table. So that is a good takeaway what you should understand. When we are going to define it as a foreign key should be a primary key inside a table here. So we can see there is a primary keys SID and CID, and this foreign key, it is going to support SID and it is going to refer the students. So student is going to be a primary key in a table here. So you can see here table is represented with a primary key called as SID. Enrollment is now bringing up this SID. So what happens was, in this relation we are going to mention the foreign key is referred with this SID, and that it is going to enforce some integrity constraints. So that is all regarding the different keys we talked about. One we called it as null. Later on we replaced with not null. Third we replaced with unique. Fourth we replaced with primary key. Fifth we replaced with candidate key. Sixth we replaced with composite key. Then we replaced finally with the these are all the differential which are available, and the foreign key, it is going to be a primary key in a table, and it is going to refer from one table towards another table. So this is all regarding the keys. So the most important thing when we use this enforcing of a referential key towards a foreign key, there are different set of actions. Cascading. So that means if one element is mapped between another table, that element also will be displayed. We call it as cascading. If we see that element, whatever dependent row we do not want to delete, then we are going to call it as no action. Similarly, we need to give some default values. that is 1, 2, 3. We want to fix up a range. Then we are going to call it as default values, and we see that there is no null value, etc. So that is also one of a integrity constraint what we are going to define in part of integrity constraint section. After these integrity keys, now we are going to have one more interesting word in an SQL that we are going to call it as views. So in this view, one of the most important thing was it is mimicking both the data definition language. It is mimicking both data definition language and it is mimicking both data manipulation language. So that is the key takeaway of the view what we should understand. So we can store a definition rather than a tuples. So here you can understand create view. So when I am going to call it as a create view, then it is called it as a data definition language. Thereby we are going to use an SQL command. Use a SQL command. As we are going to use a SQL command, now it has become a data manipulation language command. So the definition part itself is going to say that it is not distinguishing between the data definition language, nor it is not distinguishing between the data manipulation language. Both of them are going to be integrated in part of a view. So view is not a just relation, but we can store a definition rather than its a set of values. So in order to view, we use a command called as a create, and if we want to lose a thing, that means we are going to use a dropping of a view. So that is how a view is going to be taken up. So view, it is going to see that the data will not be accessed by external members, which sees that the data is going to be protected much. So data binding, data encapsulation is going to be a part of the primary scope of a view. So that is the reason why view is going to have having a hidden part, so that the data cannot be revealed by the external users. Only the proprietary users can use this view. So we talked about schema, it is called as a blueprint. Then we talked about our data models, that is we have a two-dimensional model, then we do have hierarchical model, we have network model, then we created a table, and table is going to be set up with physical schema and logical schema. Then a database student is created and it is going to be accessed by an aliases. Aliases is nothing but an instance of that. Thereby we talked about the SQL commands. In SQL commands we talked about DDL, DCL commands and DML and DTL commands, and thereby we discussed about the key constraints, integrity constraints, key, super key, composite key, candidate key, etc. And thereby the integrity constraints, the assertions, how we can build up over a database, that is taken up. So these are all different constraints which are going to be part of a relational model. Altogether, the relational data is totally in control of the database administrator. He is going to manage data. He is going to give some set of privileges to the users to use over a set of database. After this, we do have one more topic regarding this, regarding the unit 3, that is the DVMS, etc. So in this part, we continue the previous assertions, previous usages of the content. So when we are going to work with a database, then we do come across the relational algebra and we come across tuple calculus. So relational algebra, totally it is going to build up queries, and it is going to allow concurrent users or multiple users to access the database at the same time, and thereby they are going to retrieve the database. So optimized query has to be built so that it gives a strong foundation over a logic, and that we are going to call it as tuning. So tuning, that is not part of a syllabus as of now. So we do have this relational algebra, and relational algebra is going to have one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one. So many-to-many relationship, and thereby we do have some inferrative and declarative part, which it is going to be taken up with the relational calculus. So it derives how to compute a query, etc. So to do this, we do have relational instances, and those relational instances are going to be fixed up in part of a schema, etc. So this is what a textbook example for the entire unit 3 and unit 4 is going to be concerned. So the author, he is going to use up a database called as Silers. So Silers, they are going to be identified by Siler ID, Siler name, Siler rating, and age, and they are going to make a reserve operation. They are going to make a reserves as a operation. So they are going to use another database called as BOAT here, another database called as BOAT, and BOAT, it is going to be identified with the color, that is blue or red or whatever it is. Then it is going to be identified with the BOAT ID. So that it is going to be taken up in a BOAT database, and reserves is going to be a relationship. Reserves is going to be a relationship between the BOAT and Siler. So BOAT is one set of database, Siler is another set of database, and we do have reserves, and that reserves, it is going to be part of a relationship between BOAT and Silers, and reserves is going to have a composition with both the primary keys SID and BID, and which date the BOAT has been reserved. So now how we can take this up in a realistic way? So now the agenda was how we can take up this in a realistic way. So the foremost takeaway to take up this realistic way was a selection part, which it is going to be related with a sigma, and it is going to take up the subset of a rows. That means if I'm going to have 10 rows, in that 10 rows, then I can take up 2 or 3 or 5 or n. So in the entire set, I'm going to take up 2 or 3 rows, which I'm going to call it as a subset. And selecting of that subset of rows from the main set on a database, it is going to be done with an operation called as selection. After selection has been taken up, then we do have one more operation called as projection, and projection, it is going to be represented with a item called as pi here. So projection is going to be represented with the pi, selection is going to be represented with sigma here. And what is projection was, it is going to primarily focus on columns. Primarily it is going to focus on columns, and it sees that whatever columns I do not need for the rebuilding of a relation, those columns it is going to delete. So unwanted columns are going to be removed from the database. That can be taken up with an operation projection. Wanted rows from a database has to be taken up, that it is going to be taken with an operation called as selection. So you should understand both these differences. So I am going to have m rows in one table, I am having n rows in another table. Now I need to make a relationship between m and n. That means m into n, m cross n. So total I am going to cut it at m cross n. And if I am going to have 4 in one set, and if I am going to have 5 in another set, so 4 5s are 20. So 20 sets of rows are going to be occurred. So to generate that occurrence, we are going to use a word called as Cartesian product. We are going to use a word called as Cartesian product, and Cartesian product, it is going to see that it combines two relations. It is going to combine two relations in a database. So for that we are going to use a Cartesian product. Now I need a minus b operation. I need some a minus b operation. If such is a case, then I am going to use the set difference. So I need only a, I don't want the common elements inside a and b, and even I don't want b item. At that case, I am going to check up only the pure a operation, excluding the union part with b. Then the difference, the a minus b operation is going to come into picture. After a minus b is happened, similarly we can make a b minus a. In this way, all those operations are going to be part of a set difference there. Then we need an integration of two or more sets. If such is the case, then we are going to use a word called as union here. So union, it is going to build up a common tuples which are in A and common tuples which are in B. Then we are going to raise up a word called as union. So Then after selection, after projection, after Cartesian product, after set difference, and after union, we have some additional operations which can be an intersection, which is going to be very disjoint between these two sets, and thereby we have having renaming, that is renaming is just modifying the name of a database. Similarly, we have most interesting operations will be with join operations and division operations. So these are the different parts which are going to be part of a relational algebra. So we do have a selection example. So we have Cyler here. Then we are going to build a relational data. That is, I need a Cyler whose rating is greater than 8. He is greater than 8. Then we can pick up Yummy and we can put Rusty. So these two are the elements which are generated if such an operation is going to be taken place. So we told that selection, it is going to be subset of the rows. So I am having 5 rows. In that I am going to take up 2 rows. So that selection of the subset of a rows, we are going to use it as a selection operation. And selection operation, it is going to be done with less than, greater than or equals to, less than or equals to. So no duplicate operations is going to be generated with conditions. So selection, it can eliminate few columns. So assume I can say SID, SName, rating, age are there. 4 columns are there. In these 4 columns, I want only 2 columns. I need SID and I need only rating. At that case, I am going to use the projection operator, and projection operator is going to be written as pi here. That means I want only SName, I want only, I do not want SName, I do not want age, I want only I do not want SID, I do not want age, I want only SName and rating. If such a type of scenario is going to be done, then I'm going to use a projection operator, and projection operator is going to be done with pi. So you can see in the next tabular form that out of the 4 columns, we are taking only the 2 columns as a subset of this operation. So next, the element was a projection operation. In this projection operation, you can see SID, SName, rating and age, and we are going to take up only 2 columns, one SName and rating, so that it is going to be done with an example of projection. So projection, it is going to eliminate the columns, and it gives us what columns we are going to need. So we talked about selection, we talked about projection. After that, we have a union operation, we have intersection operation, and we have difference operations, which they are going to be part of a database here. So we can see this union operation. So in this union operation, we have ID, name, rating, and age. We have 1, 2, and 3 rows at this part, and similarly we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Total number of columns are total number of rows are going to be 4. Now we are going to add a union operation. If such a union operation is going to take place, you can see 10, 5, and 9 are occurring. But you can see the repetitive items, that is rating 8 and rating time, that is rating 10 for Luber and Rusty, are not going to be repeated because they arise in both table 1 and table 2. Similarly, the same set of operations are going to be done as difference. So if I'm going to have 7, 8, 10 as rating, 9, 8, 5, 10 as rating, so we can see only 7 exist in S1. 8 and 10, they are going to be common here. So 8 and 10, they are going to be common in this second relation. So that common elements are going to be removed. So similarly, if I'm going to say an intersection operator, so I can say 31, I can say 31 is there and 58 is there. 31 and 58 IDs are going to be common in both these 2 sets. So only those 2 sets are going to be occurred as the results for the database operations here. So Cartesian product, as mentioned, I'm going to have relation 1 with 2 attributes and relation 2 with 3 attributes. Then I'm going to have it as 3 cross 2. So we are going to have 3 cross 2. So we will be getting 6 as an element here. That is, we have 6 items as a relationship in this. But still, there are going to be some duplicate values. There are going to be some duplicate values. That is one of a disadvantage of the Cartesian product. So there are many cases why we need a join. When we are going to need a join, we need cross product, we need selection, and we need projection. So that is the drawback is of a cross product. It is too large to materialize, and we need to apply selection and projection on a fly. So that is where this join is going to come into picture. Yeah, that is all for today. We'll continue from tomorrow's class from joins, and joins will be more interesting when compared to this setup, when compared to the Cartesian product or a cross product, etc. Yeah.